whenever you decide to vet a company, and of course, it probably sounds like I'm saying we're the best. Well, I do feel like we do every single thing at the best of our ability, and we see the blind spots of other companies and we shed light on that.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast on podcasting. This show is meant for you. This show is to help podcasters, either a brand new podcaster who's just launching their show or somebody who's new, less than 2 years into their journey, that's looking to grow and monetize their show. And every other episode of this podcast is just me pouring into you individually. And so like on the last episode with Amy, for example, talking about branding, that was an interview with somebody. And then this episode's just me trying to pour into you. Today, I want to talk a little bit about what my company does, because I never really I always feel like concerned about self-promotion. I feel like, I don't know what it is, but there is this deep feeling that I'm sure you get as well, that you want to make sure that people know that you're here for the right reasons. You want to make sure that people know that you're there just pouring into them. And it makes it just feel sometimes uncomfortable to take a moment to say, hey, this is what my company does and can do for you. And so I wanted to spend just a little bit of time on that during this episode. I kind of got inspired by interviewing another person who has a company who serves podcasters. And it just started to make me think, what's important about starting a podcast and how should you decide like who to hire and how to hire them? And came to decide, I never really share what it is that we do in our company. So I just wanted to do that now. So here's a few things. Like, we can serve people that already have a podcast that are looking to grow the listener base. And the main ways that we do that is by actual paid marketing and also having my team, like individuals on my team who constantly send out private messages to your perfect avatar. So we figure out that avatar and then our team just markets it and grows it and brings it up. So that's one thing, is we can market a podcast. It's already existing. Like, it's already there. And all you need is you found that you weren't doing the marketing. And so you don't have a strong listener base. So we just spend a little bit of time figuring out who is your listener, and we go and find them. We do Facebook ads. We do even like email campaigns. We'll connect with other people. We'll put up banner ads in different places like blogs and things like that. And then we have our private message campaign, which is legit. Happy to talk to you about that anytime. So that's one thing that we do. The second thing that growyourshow.com does is we serve people simply by editing. Like, you already got a podcast, it's already going, and you're tired of all the hard work. Like, it kind of feels like hell to you. You know that you need to stay in your own lane. And so what Grow Your Show can do is we actually call ourselves the easy button for podcasters. The easy button for podcasters means that you press record and we just take care of everything else. We handle the rest of the stuff for you. So once you push record, we want that to go to the cloud. And here's just a small list. If you go to the website, growyourshow.com, and click the full service button, you can read, or click the post-production button, click the post-production button. There's a giant list of every single thing that we take care of, but I still thought it would be valuable if I highlight just a few of them so you just understand what kinds of things that we do, because I'm actually personally impressed that for about $175, that's where it is as I'm recording. We haven't raised our prices in a long time, and we don't intend on raising them anytime soon. So that might still be the price when you're listening to this as well, like even if it's 5 years into the future or whatever. But the point is, I actually feel like proud that we can do all of these things for $175, because there's a lot of people that charge $375 and they don't even do 30% of what I'm about to share. I'll give you a few of the things right now. So we do complete audio editing, sound engineering, mix it, edit, render it. We even publish every single episode across many, many platforms, and some platforms that other teams can't get you on. And so I think that there's a lot of good stuff. Like, for example, we do the teaser, which is a short, like 17-second piece from the actual episode. Kind of gets your listener excited to listen to the rest of the episode. We do pre-recorded intro and outro. Obviously, like most people do that anyway. We edit out many of the filler words, but we do not edit out all of them. And that's really important. I actually feel like your podcast will not sound real. It won't sound like you're able to resonate with your listener if you edit out every single and ah. First off, there's breaths that need to be thought about and conscious about. So anyway, we have a standard where we just leave up to 2 filler words within 3 sentences. When it goes past that, we edit the rest out. We'll clean up like all the other problematic segments, do our 6-part show notes. So we're like actually writing your show notes. You don't have to do that anymore. Our team creates attractive promotional images, and there's 4 of them that every single person gets, like a quote card, audiogram or videogram, a thumbnail, and a square image. And what's kind of cool is like we publish those things to your social media for you, and we email them to your guests so that they can share. So you don't even you don't have to do your own social media anymore. You don't have to even spend time communicating with a guest after you've recorded, because we just send that stuff to them automatically. We'll make sure to publish across all the platforms, and just to kind of make your life a bit easier, as we know you're busy and you're focused on some other things. We try to make sure that we are promoting all of those things across all these platforms in an organic way, so that people can find you and you don't have to kind of do that. That's the second thing, is our post-production services, which in actuality is complete everything everything. After you push record, we handle everything else. We just want to be the easy button. So other than the marketing and then just basically the main post-production, we can help you launch a podcast if it's not already existing. We've done this with many people, and when we launch podcasts, so far, everybody who's launched a podcast with us, they get a ton of traction because of the way we do it. And I'm thinking about this because of the person that I was just interviewing on the last episode. And we were talking a little bit about how it was important that their company helps you to be able to record 1 episode before you launch, so that you can push a 5 to 10 minute episode out. And I started to think, I personally don't think that's enough. When you're vetting a company to work with, if they're only going to care about 1 episode, to me, it really truly feels like you're kind of behind the 8 ball. You're always trying to play catch up. And I don't think it's enough if you want a successful podcast. If you want a podcast that gets a lot of downloads, a lot of people listening, a lot of people buying your products, I think rushing those steps is I'm afraid of rushing those steps. I feel there's this ready, fire, aim versus ready, aim, fire. Stephen Covey comes to mind. If you've ever read the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of those habits is begin with the end in mind. And I truly feel that most companies out there, and I'm not trying to, the last thing that I want to do is bash a company, right? The last thing that I want to do is do that. It's when someone is excited about how fast they can move, that concerns me, because my team at Grow Your Show wants to be thinking of how well we can move, how appropriate we can move, that we're taking all the right steps, that we're consciously thinking about where we want this to go. And so some people are touting, is it toting or touting? I think it's touting. Whoops. When there's many companies, their editor can turn things around in 24 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours. I think of it how do you get everything done in that amount of time? How do you make sure that the audio is clean, that the intro and outro is there, that all the promotional materials are ready, that you're able to email the guest weeks in advance so that they know when the episode's going to come out, and then the day before, and get them all these attractive promotional images, the quote cards, audiogram or videogram. How do you spend For example, especially if it's a small team, how do you spend a week's worth of work and get it done in, for example, 24 hours? It's just not really plausible. It just can't seem to happen to be able to like have all of your ducks in a row when that episode goes live. So what ends up happening, or what I've seen, is many companies out there can do the editing of the show and basically publish the show, but it is not getting the traction that it needs. And so that's the concern that I have. Whenever you decide to vet a company, and of course, it probably sounds like I'm saying we're the best. Well, I do feel like we do every single thing at the best of our ability, and we see the blind spots of other companies and we shed light on that, and we find ways around not missing those things that I would say 95% of companies miss most of them. And anyway, let me move on, because I want to just continue to let you know like what we do with our full service. When we're basically helping you launch or rebrand a show, we create all of the artwork for you, like your podcast logo, for example. That's created in-house, so you don't hire somebody besides us. You don't have to. You certainly can, but we do a great job. We also handle the music, so it's always original theme music that nobody else has. We also handle the branding. And when we're launching your show, if it's a brand new show, the main things that we're looking at is we want to have the whole first month. And that, for an example, the last episode before this episode, they were talking about how like your podcast should be launched in a week or two, like everything's super fast. It'll be launched in a week or two. Team's a little bit different. When we're launching a show, we want to make sure that we have that trailer episode ready to go. And all of the episodes that launch on launch day need to be ready to go. And generally speaking, we want multiple episodes to be launched on that day. So for example, for like our smaller packages, at least 3 episodes are coming out on that first day. And on our bigger package, we want to have 6. And then we have a special like launch plan where we want you to be able to create more content, produce more content that first month or two. It's just like, how do you get traction if you only publish once a week in the very beginning? It is actually a huge challenge. And most podcasts do once a week or less. And most podcasts fail. And so I see like some company might help you to be able to get like 1 episode out. But if it's just 1 episode out and then maybe 1 the following week, we're probably not going to be able to get the traction that you need so that you're getting earballs on your podcast, because you're not triggering any podcast algorithms. First and foremost, you're not triggering any algorithms. Like the platform doesn't say, oh my gosh, there's 1 episode out. I'm so excited that this person just launched a brand new podcast. I'm going to push it out to the world. You can't trigger an algorithm by simply just having that 1 episode published and then being loosey-goosey, for example, like over the course of a few months. And so there's just a lot of companies that do it that way. And I honestly, deep in my heart, I don't feel like it really serves a podcaster, because a podcaster needs basically 2 things. They're really looking for 2 things. They're looking to gain impact on lives, leave their legacy. Impact is the word. And the second word is income. They probably don't want the podcast to cost them money. And if you don't have a listener, if you don't have very many listeners because you weren't able to trigger an algorithm, it's like you kind of miss out on impacting lives and you miss out on the income. You still have a podcast. It might even sound great, but if you're not impacting lives and making income, you're losing out on the main reasons why most people start a podcast. And you'll just simply have a show regardless if people are listening. When my team supports podcasters, it's important to us that we're triggering those algorithms, we're giving as much traction as possible. And one of the things that ends up happening is we don't even push the button to launch the podcast until the whole first month is recorded. So we never want you to be behind the 8 ball. We never want to have problems exist, which in the past, I'll be honest, we have done that with a few clients. Like a few clients, we felt compelled to kind of like stay with the date that they wanted to launch their podcast. And so like, as we were trying to stay with the date that they wanted, they weren't able to get all of those things kind of in place. And what it ended up doing is causing a lot of commotion, making a lot more challenging for us to be able to grow the podcast, a lot harder for us to trigger those algorithms. We had to put a lot more money like into paid marketing just to be able to do it. And I would say stressful on me and several people on my team as we were still trying to get this stuff after it was launched. And it added a lot of pressure, I noticed, to the host and the co-host of the podcast. This happened one time. To that one podcast is the host and the co-host were stressed, and they even said things to us like, I thought this would be a little bit more systematic, and we had to apologize. We had to say, here's the thing, like, we have our systems in place. We're not supposed to ever go with just a date without having all these things in place, because it causes this stress and it ends up making it a lot more challenging to be able to get it in front of the earballs that you want it to be. It's going to make it hard to have impact or income. And so obviously I communicated very strictly to the team and said, we can never do this. This isn't helping a podcaster when they launch with us if we passively just do every single thing that the podcaster says. We know what's best. We've done this dozens of times. We've launched several dozen podcasts, and they're all performing perfectly, and they're in the top 1% rated in the entire world out of 2.7 million podcasts. We've never failed. And now we're trying to say to our clients that we're the experts, but what we did instead is tried to just do everything that they said. So anyway, I've been on all sides of this as somebody who's launched more than one podcast of my own and has helped dozens of people launch a podcast or grow a podcast. It's important that my team kind of handles that stuff and not do just everything passively that the client needs, or else we're going to run into problems. So anyway, with the full service, we handle all the branding, the marketing, we create all of the promotional images. I call them assets. They're assets to the podcast. We'll even help you get the website up and running. So those are the things that we do. The full service generally will include everything that the post-production includes as well for a whole year. We're editing your podcast, producing your podcast from the day that your podcast launches for 12 months. It's already included in the price, so you don't pay anything else for an editor, which is remarkable. And you don't have to pay for additional marketing, because we actually throw in our marketing packages that we mentioned to you before. So that's pretty well what the company does. That's pretty well how we do it, why we do it, and what we're thinking about as we're launching a podcast. I'll say one more thing, just because it seems to be a real frequently asked question, as well as something that has come up as a challenge a few times with some of our podcast hosts that we serve, is that we like to be a couple of weeks ahead. So you're always going to be giving us content at least 2 to 3 weeks prior to the day that it airs. I don't want to tout that I can have a 24 or 48 hour turnaround time. That's speed is not the only thing that matters. In many cases, quality and being prepared and doing things right is the way to trigger the algorithms and to support your listener so that your listener keeps coming back. If we do those things wrong, if we mess those things up, if we try to rush something, it's not really doing anyone a favor. So doing it right is more important than doing it fast. That's one of the reasons why my team is always a couple of weeks in advance. You give me episode today, I know that it's going to come out at least 2 weeks into the future. And some of our clients, like even my podcast, it's going to be like months into the future. We're recording ahead of time. So you're never feeling like you're behind the 8 ball. You're never feeling that like high amount of stress because the episode you're recording today isn't going to come out for a few weeks. And you're always ahead of the game. We always have several weeks of content. And that's really the right way to do it. That's really the comfortable way to do it, and the way that is going to allow your podcast to skyrocket and actually jump into rankings, like ranked in the top 1%, for example. So anyway, that's what Grow Your Show does. I thought I should share it. I thought I should open up the kimono. And even if it sounded like a big giant sales pitch, I thought it was important to spend the time with you so that you understood how could Grow Your Show serve you. So we could do all of the stuff after you press record to just make your life easier, and for super low price. It's like $175 an episode. It's amazing. B, we could do the marketing. Marketing's quite a bit more expensive. I'll mention, like, we do an amazing job and we put a lot of financial resources into what we do. And as part of it, we actually put our money where our mouth is. So if you don't achieve the results where you're ranking into the top charts, if you don't end up doing that, then we actually write a check. We put our money where our mouth is. So we don't market and expect nothing to happen. We market, and we've done it before. And if you don't achieve those results, then we write you a big check. And so it's kind of valuable, I think, even though it does cost a little bit more. And the full service is all inclusive of all those things, plus all of the consulting that you're going to need to be able to make sure that the branding is on point, that the marketing is on point, and that we're going to be doing things systematically in the process that we've actually seen great results for other people. So those are the 3 things that we do. Yes, if you are curious, if you do want to see more information and schedule a call with us, you can go to our website. It's just growyourshow.com. And I appreciate you listening time and time again. This episode was a solo episode, a little bit shorter than some of our interview episodes. And most of the solo episodes are more like, I just teach you tactics that you can use, or strategies that are beneficial, things that we've seen, stories that help to be able to solidify some of that information. This solo episode was more like me sharing what it might look like to work with us, because I thought it was important to do after so many episodes so that you understood what that could look like. But on the next episode, like you'll hear probably tomorrow, is going to be me interviewing a great person that's kind of in the journey where you are, and you can learn and understand what they're going through, what they did go through, what they overcame, kind of like the benefits of what their podcast is doing for them, and a few tangible strategies as well. So I'll see you on the next episode. You don't even have to hang up or go anywhere. Just listen to that next episode and see you in a few minutes. This is serious. Don't go. Now that you've gotten whatever value that you feel that you got, the actionable takeaways, you need to implement the stuff that you learned. If you remember me talking about bird church once, and they learn how to fly, and then they walk home, I don't want you to walk home. I want you to fly home. So take the steps, take the actionable steps for your benefit so that you can become a better podcaster. That's the only thing that I ask of you. And I'll see you for more actionable tips on the very next episode.